Welcome to Superlore. I'm host Carter Smelly, and here's my co-host Cody Smith. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Carter. Well, today's episode is a little bit different than our last two,
Mhm.
obviously, because instead of going ahead and talking about a character that has been established in the land of the big screen or even on the small screen, to be honest with you, we're talking about a character that I personally feel should be introduced by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that character is known as Squirrel Girl. But I know a lot of people don't really know about her. She's a bit more obscure.
Mhm.
So the question that I've got, obviously you've got, and our viewers probably have, is who is Squirrel Girl? We
Yeah.
went ahead and I went ahead and I put together a quick synopsis of her, and we're about to play that very shortly.
Okay.
So, who is Squirrel Girl? Squirrel Girl, also known as Doreen Allen Green, happens to be a superheroine who lives in New York. She's currently established as a computer science major attending New York University. Her superpowers can best be described as a mix between Spider Man, Ant Man, and Wolverine. Much like how Spider Man has the overall proportional strength and agility of a spider, Squirrel Girl happens to have the proportional strength and agility of a squirrel. As many know, Ant Man can correspond and communicate with ants, and Squirrel Girl has the ability to do the same thing, but with squirrels instead. Lastly, she happens to have a set of small little knuckle spikes on her hands, which reach 3 inches in length and can best be seen as a small singular version of Wolverine's claws. During her debut, which she ended up going ahead and ambushing Tony Stark while he was on a mission to combat Doctor Doom, she ended up trying to essentially get herself recruited by him, even though she was only 14 years old at the time. In the end, Tony reluctantly accepted her help on this mission, only to end up getting captured by Doom. And it was Squirrel Girl who ended up saving the day, rescuing him from Doom's clutches using her giant army of squirrels that she can communicate with, including her pal at the time, Monkey Joe. Of course, later on, she ended up getting Tippy Toe instead. Tony was like, all right, I can see that you're definitely competitive and combative, but you're a little too young to be going out there and fighting crime at this time. However, as you age, I'll make sure to put in a good word with you with the Avengers. However, after this debut, which happened in January 1992, she was kind of shelved for a long period of time, basically becoming a butt of a joke character where she was used as a one off in a lot of smaller gags instead of actually making cameos or appearances in any books. Until a man by the name of Dan Slotts came along, who opted to use Squirrel Girl in his run of Great Lakes Avengers comics. This series, which only lasted 4 issues, basically ended up establishing Doreen as a bit of someone who liked to take care of major level threats off screen, if you will. The most well known of these during this run is her pummeling of Thanos, but she also ended up taking down the Mandarin, MODOK, and Fing Fang Foom during this time. Then she was then seen in 2010 to 2013 in a series called The New Avengers, but she didn't appear as a member of the team, but rather as the nanny for Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. And during this run, it was also established that her and Wolverine may or may not have either hooked up or dated for a short period in time. Thus, given the age difference between these two characters, kind of grosses me out a little bit. Then in 2015, for the very first time ever, she was given her own solo series. And this series was created by Ryan North and Erica Henderson. And instantly, North took her in a completely different direction than anyone else had up to this point. leaning into the idea that she was indeed unbeatable. But instead of going ahead and playing it for overall last, he ended up establishing the fact that she's very empathetic and believes that anybody can truly change. So she became a character that was against being violent in her books, overall trying to reform the villains that she was up against. Examples of this during this time was going ahead and befriending Galactus and helping him conquer his hunger for planets by instead divulging his hunger towards nuts and acorns. Another example of this was getting down to the root cause of Craven the Hunter's desire to hunt down Spider Man, basically wondering why he felt that Spider Man was the most dangerous hunt of his overall life instead of going ahead and actually pursuing foes that he could take down, such as major monsters and demons and things of that nature in the Marvel Universe instead. As I said, these creators weren't afraid to get different with her books. They did a series where her book became a choose your own adventure comic, essentially letting you leap from panel to panel with choices, as can be seen in this photo here, where she's talking with the Swarm during this issue. Lastly, after this run was done in November 2019, she was to appear a bunch of other heroes in a series known as New Warriors, and she was to be played by Milana Vaintrub. Vaintrub was looking very, very forward to this role, obviously, but sadly this never left the pilot stage and was a sore spot for a lot of fans until source images of Vaintrub in her costume were leaked. After that, she went ahead and ended up coming back to voice the character alongside North, who also came back to do a podcast that lasted 6 episodes in 2022. And of course, Squirrel Girl has seen some small animated movies here and there where she's been parts of teams on and off. But besides that, nothing major has really truly come of the character for now. We're waiting to see what happens in the future. Thank you all for listening. Now let's get back to our host and overall Carter's thoughts on this character. Well, welcome back. So, Carter, obviously, you've seen the video now.
Yep.
What do you think of Doreen Green as a character?
Yeah, she's a very interesting character. I find it interesting how she's able to actually like resonate with these villains. You know what I mean? And actually get on their side. And I don't know how she's able to do it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
A lot of it is her empathy. Like she,
yeah.
In fact, it's how she communicates with squirrels is her major empathy towards them.
So would she count as a hero though, or is she like an anti-hero? Because she's like interacting with villains and kind of getting on their side.
She's a hero. She's a hero.
Do these villains turn to the good side when they befriend her, or are they still villains?
Some of them stay villains. Some of them become more anti-heroes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing that I didn't get to touch on in that clip is her relationship with Deadpool. And of course, we all know the upcoming movie Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be happening.
I'm hyped for that.
Yeah, and definitely interested in seeing that. I mean, I know they released that trailer during the Super Bowl weekend.
Yep.
And I feel like she's a character that could easily cameo.
They gotta at some point like introduce her to one of these MCU movies because she's a very slept on character. And this could have been the perfect film to introduce her to like the mainstream audience. But hopefully with another film they might get a chance. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, like I said, it'd be great to see her cameo in this because she's a character that kind of nudges against the fourth wall in Deadpool. And of course, like I said, there's that relationship with Wolverine there, obviously. So they could play on that.
For sure.
But they could also really play with her relationship with Deadpool because Deadpool almost got recruited into the Great Lakes Avengers in a spin-off comic that happened in 2007 after the GLA series, the 4-issue miniseries ended.
You're right.
It was that whole run with Sluts is kind of messy and kind of gory, but it's also a really fun ride if you're into the GLA at all. And I feel like that's another team that they can introduce maybe as a Disney Plus series on the side.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I mean, they're more of a comedic set of heroes, but the fact that you've got a comedic set of heroes is a good thing. It's something that they can play off of, definitely. And I mean, they already kind of hinted at Mr. Immortal already with She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm. That's right, they did. I remember that.
Yeah, and he's the main leader of the GLA.
Wow.
But I'm really looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, same here, man.
I mean, the first two movies were great.
Seeing that.
First two movies were great, and this feels like they're just going to completely riff on the MCU as a whole here.
Oh yeah, and I can't wait for some of the cameos that are like rumored to happen from some of like the early 2000s Marvel characters. Apparently, Ben Affleck was seen on set reprising his role as Daredevil, and Jennifer Garner is actually coming back as Elektra, I heard. So
that is very interesting. Of course, it's going back to Squirrel Girl. They could always do her in the Spidey flick too. Yes. She is a New York resident. Yeah. And she's a university student. And we all know right now in Peter's timeline, he's about to head to university.
Yep, he is.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like it's really interesting to think about, you know?
Yep.
Like, I'm happy that you were willing to talk to me about this character. And of course,
I'm glad I could talk about her too.
Yeah. I'm glad that you understand my appreciation for her, and you're really looking for a lighthearted and fun read. The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, like I said, that run of comics is really fun. It's a great time.
For sure.
Anyways, I believe that's pretty much like all the time that we've got for today.
Yep.
Thank you all for listening to us go ahead and talk about this character, and you have yourselves a wonderful day.
Yes.